moment that Final Destination was released to now and moving forward, how has horror changed? Because I don't see as many slasher films anymore. That's not as in vogue as it used to be.
Right.
It's not like the '80s, the golden era of slasher films and that kind of horror. What kind?
Yeah.
And then there was the was it horror porn, or not horror porn, but
Oh, they
Saw
call it
Saw. Yeah,
torture.
torture
Yeah.
porn. Yeah, the Saw and the Hostel and that whole era of kind of horror. Where do you see horror going? And are we going to come back to some of this, nostalgic slasher? Because I know they tried to remake Freddy, and they did as good of a job, but you can't catch that. Robert Englund is Freddy. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I mean, I think right now we're very much in a supernatural kind of, you
right?
know,
The Conjuring.
supernatural kind of horror kind of world. Um, but I honestly, because I know that the business tries to the business tries to stay ahead of the curve and kind of run the ball about what's going to be popular. But then something popular comes out, and then everybody tries to start making that. So everybody's, trying to make the next Get Out now, like socially relevant kind of horror films. Um, so I think we'll be seeing some more of that coming out for a while. But I think we're just one, you know, fresh slasher film away from having any of these genres come back. I mean, I still love a good slasher movie. Um, there have been a glut of zombie movies, like, and I get on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and everything. I'm like, from every country, it's like there's a gazillion zombie movies out there right now.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I mean, I think people go to see horror films to escape the horrors going on in the real world. So I feel like escapism horror, like supernatural kind of stuff, is probably going to always be popular, and slasher stuff, because that's still escapism if it's not sadistic, like just mean spirited.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly know when COVID first hit, all my friends were like, "We're writing a COVID script." I'm like, "Don't."
No, no. I said the same thing. I'm like, I talked to some executives like, we got 20 COVID scripts a day, and nobody is going to produce a COVID script, because the last thing I want to watch is a COVID script.
Yeah,
Like, you didn't want to watch a 9/11 movie after
no,
9/11, or a Vietnam movie while Vietnam was going on.
yeah, yeah. So I think that I think the escapism horror, I think supernatural still goes strong for a long time, but I think slasher movies are always going to be popular. It's just you know, you got to get that right slasher kind of combination with characters and the slasher together.
And that's the one thing I love. You said something a second ago. Mean spirited with those slasher films of the '80s that we all kind of love and grew up with. They're not mean spirited. I
Yeah,
mean, Freddy is funny. Like, he got
yeah,
funnier. He got a lot funnier after
yeah,
the second and third and fourth. He became almost a comedy act,
yeah,
killing people towards the end of that series. And it wasn't mean spirited. Even Michael and those and Jason, who are kind of basically voiceless, they don't say anything. And
right.
when Freddy versus Jason came out, I mean, that was hilarious.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
so much fun. But that is a key, isn't it? Not being mean spirited in the way you do it. And I think a lot of those um, kind of torture porn films, kind of, I think a little bit were a little bit mean spirited. Like Saw 1 was amazing.
yeah. And I think that's it's all it's a matter of taste for sure. Like, I don't, because I know certain people like certain types of movies, but I
Sure.
think that there's a difference. Like, and I'll just use Hostel as an example. Like, I thought the first Hostel was very entertaining. Like, it had humor to it. You had, male antagonists for the first time in a long time in horror movies. And it was also kind of commenting on how, like, American men will, or American anybody will travel internationally, and we have an arrogance about us. Like, we go to like France, and we're like annoyed that people don't speak English, but we're here demanding that everybody speak English. But when we travel, we're like, why doesn't anybody speak English everywhere? So it kind of played up that whole thing, and made the characters were kind of, some of them were sympathetic, but some of them were kind of jerks, and the torture didn't come till later. Whereas I think if you watch Saw 2, in my humble opinion, like, it kind of did everything right that Hostel did. I think Hostel 2 did wrong, because it had, women. It had the, Heather Mazazoa's character, who's like tied up naked, hung upside down, like begging for her life as this woman like slowly like slices her for, it's just there's a difference in tone. Like there's just a mean-spiritedness about like Hostel 2, and there's a mean-spiritedness about certain of these kind of torture porn movies where it's you're not just, because you want to go have fun at these movies.
Right.
It's not like watching you don't want to go and watch somebody, you don't want to watch a mortician dissect a body
Correct.
in real life. So for a horror movie, it's not like you want to sit there and watch a killer slowly like torture a person to death. It's like watching somebody torture a cat on, online. It's like, that's not entertaining. That just feels gratuitous and is mean-spirited. And I think that's why those films don't tend to have as big of an audience. Because even the Saw movies, they're not. I don't feel like they're mean-spirited. There's a sense of like with Jigsaw, giving people a choice to like save themselves or save somebody else. Sometimes, I don't feel like they're gruesome, but I don't feel like they're mean. Like it feels like you're like.
I remember Hostel being like Hostel 2 specifically was, I agree with you, was mean.
Yeah.
Like there was just like, I don't want to watch this. Like this is. Then you watch Freddy, and you're like, well, this is fun. Like this is just fun. Chucky is,
fun.
like when my wife saw Chucky the first time, she's like, and she watched it years later after it was released, she's like, this is ridiculous. I would just kick the damn thing. It's a doll. Like it's a doll. What's wrong with you people? Like it's like, but that's kind of what makes it funny, and that he's so wonderfully written, and his dialogue and everything is so, and the Bride of Chucky and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing.